So I'm going to talk about positional shooting, alternate firing positions from a barricade. This is a standard VTAC style barricade with a staircase that goes from high right to low left, squares, diagonal mail slots, and a few of the prone positions that we'll get into at the end. I'm just going to cover a couple of them. Every single one of these I have to have a plan for, otherwise I'm either going to burn time on the clock or I'm going to pull some inaccurate shots. So starting from the top, if I have a horizontal support and I have a vertical, I'm going to try to use both of those and get my gun all the way over into that wedge. I'm going to take my support hand and I'm going to make an L and kind of push it into that wedge. And then if I have anything to grab, whether it's the top of the rail or on my gun I have a knob, I hook my finger over that knob and now I have support on all sides. The barricade itself, this one's made of plastic, so it's got a little bit of wobble to it. I'm going to try to eat some of that up by loading it, and my support hand is going to hold my rifle steady on the position. Once I get set, I'm going to make sure I check my dial, my parallax adjustment, and my zoom to make sure everything is at the correct setting. And then I'm going to hit the target on round 2. Coming down to the next step on the barricade, this one is a little bit easier for my height. I was on my tiptoes for the last one, and gonna take this off because we don't need it for right now. All right, so from this height, I have a sliding bipod on an Arca rail, so I can telescope it in and out. I'm actually going to lock it up and lock the bipod down, and my gun will sit locked into the barricade. I don't like doing that from the high, standing from that height, because I still have to manipulate the rifle down towards the target a little bit. But here I've got plenty of support to push it into the vertical and horizontal support. Use my non-firing hand to stabilize, load the barricade a little bit, and shoot. Unlock the bipod, and now we come to our next height. This one we have a decision to either shoot it from low standing or from a high kneeling. And because I have a plan for most of these barricades, I go from, if it's below my belly button, I go high kneeling. If it's above, I go low standing. And that's kind of my cutoff point. This one's right on the border, but I'm going to go high kneeling on this one. I'm going to lock it in the same way I did on the previous shot. Use the vertical and the horizontal. I'm going to plant, load the barricade, and shoot. We come down to the next height. This is going to be a standard kneeling height, so I'm going to have both knees planted, kind of a wide stance if I can get it. I'm going to lock my barricade in place, use my support hand, load the barricade a little bit, and shoot. It starts to get a little uncomfortable if you get super low, but you can either do a seated on your ankles, or if you can't crouch down, if you're not as flexible, it takes a little bit more time, but you can actually get into a seated position. Lock the barricade, still using the vertical. If I have a staircase, I'm going to use the top vertical and the horizontal, so I can have those 2 points of contact on my rifle. From a seated position, I can stabilize. I'm actually reverse loading this barricade at this point because of my position. My body wants to sit back. So instead of pushing forward like I was standing, I'm actually pulling back on it and using this support hand as a anchor. So we can move to a couple of these square holes and round holes. If I have a hole that's big enough for my barrel and for my scope to fit through, meaning I'll be able to see through it, then this is all I need to do. I want to have as much on the barricade as possible, so I actually, if I have time, I'll cant my bipods forward so they're making contact when I load. And because I still have a vertical and a horizontal plane, I'm going to push the rifle into one of those corners if I can. So now when I take my support hand, I can push it in. I can have 2 points of contact from the low standing, and I can load the barricade forward. If I come down to one of the lower barricade holes, this one's a little bit smaller, I can do a standard kneeling with both knees planted. I can load the barricade, go into the corner, and we'll try for the tiny target. Got it. So this one's pretty stable. But you have to have a plan for every barricade that you shoot. So you also might have to tilt your rifle one way or another, and that gets a little tricky. So if we look at this bottom hole, I can't get my rifle to see the target from the bipods. So I have to turn the rifle to either the left or the right, and that's going to affect my point of impact on the round. We're shooting this at 200 yards, so I need to know where that crosshair is going to, where the bullet's going to impact on my crosshairs if I tilt my gun 90 degrees to the left or to the right. So this kind of has to be proofed and practiced before you hit the match or hit the range. For this rifle, I'm going to be about 2 mils high when I get down. So I'm still going to try to use all that support that I can. Where am I at? All right, here we go. But if I try to shoot from bipods, my scope is blocked. So I have to tilt. And even on a broken barricade, if you're zoomed and everything is ready to go, you can still score some hits. And that same effect would occur through any of these other holes if I tilt. Obviously I can't get my scope to see the target if my barrel is through the barricade. So I would have to turn, I would have to rest, and then my stock weld and cheek weld is obviously going to be different. But I can still see the target and I can still shoot. The offset will be a little bit different through these diagonal holes. We're not quite at a full 90 degrees, and we can't go to 90 degrees because we're obstructed again. So we have to be in that little sweet spot. I'm going to zoom out and find the target. And I can still hit. We'll go over here to this common barricade, which is a 55-gallon rain barrel. And if I have my bipods bolted into a Picatinny rail, I might not be able to get a support bag. To work for me. So I'm going to move the bipods in, and now I have a support bag underneath my buttstock. So having a plan for every type of barricade to be able to quickly attack it can be the difference between hitting and missing under the clock. Now, if I came up to this rain barrel with my rifle set in a standard configuration, I would be much less stable, and it would take me longer to break that shot than having it set on the rear bag.